Brian, thank you for sharing with us what you've been up to, what you've done with your career, especially entering into this senior role where you're now starting to engage and talk about this topic. So let's just, straight away jump into it. What do you think currently is the state of D&I today? And where do we stand as not only individuals, but as businesses? I mean, I may have a biased view because I've been a contingent worker most of my career. But two people can't be bad at the same time. Two people can't be wrong, right? So take it away. Tell us, where do we stand today?
Well, as you said at the start, I'm only speaking from my personal experience. I'm not speaking on behalf of the industry or my company. And I think that companies are at different points of the journey. So what I've noticed even 10 years ago was that some companies, people like Accenture, McKinsey, and some of the big financial institutions, insurance companies, they're really ahead of the game. I mean, they can't afford to miss out on anyone who's going to bring in the next big deal. So whatever you look like, whatever your choices are. So I think there's some companies like that who are really kind of ahead. Sometimes there's been regulations around equal pay, and it's, for example, in the UK around equality in that way. But there's many other companies where it's kind of still early in the journey, where there's a big focus on gender diversity. And I think this is where a lot of the focus is. Obviously, women aren't a minority. They're the majority of our human population and the world's customers. So there's a big business imperative there. And I think most people know a woman in their life. I mean, probably they were born to one. So we kind of should have some kind of personal connection with this topic. I think I'm seeing a lot more about LGBT diversity with colleagues in the US. It's more about, we have people of color and different ethnicities. And there's more about accessibility. I mean, even 15 years ago, there was quite a lot about accessibility for people, whether that's physical or different kind of dimensions. But so I think there's all of this, but at the same time, it's, when you mentioned around diversity for contingent workers, it wasn't top of mind for me. I'll be honest with you. I don't think this is really getting a lot of focus, but I think that, I think it's super important. And now I think about it, I know quite a lot of people who are contingent workers. I hadn't really identified them as that as such. But then you're right, there's a big challenge where if they're not the full-time employees going through the process, or they're not treated the same way, or they're not included in things, how do you make sure there's kind of inclusion and diversity there? So that's kind of how I see things. How about you?
Yeah, so I think when we were initially speaking a few months ago, I was talking about my experience as a contractor and an interim. And it was really, for me, I was very fortunate because I had some brilliant managers and teams I worked for. But I think as a contingent worker, it really depends on the team and the manager you work with or the company you go into, because it is not a company-wide effort. So, even in some of the best teams and companies, I would not be invited to certain things, purely because I'm an interim and I would finish my contract in 6 months or whatever. So they didn't see me as the long term, which I understand. If there are confidential things and stuff, I understand. But as I said, I was very fortunate that I had teams and managers that really did include me most of the times, whereas I know plenty of my colleagues who do not feel that way. They in fact feel that they are almost seen as a burden on the team as a contractor or an interim, especially businesses where the culture is a bit, this is us versus you sort of a culture. So I think this is a brilliant opportunity for us to talk about this, and also for businesses to tackle the challenges to really retain this external workforce a bit more loyally. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I see that as well. And I think as what they talk about now, sometimes it's good intentions. It could be that good manager who's who thinks to invite you and maybe takes a risk on inviting you to a party where other managers might play it by the book, or maybe they may, as you say, there may be more. It's in group, out group. It's us and them kind of approach. I've certainly been on good teams. Probably maybe a decade ago at Vodafone, there was a really good team which had a real mix of independent contractors or contingent workforce and full-time employees. And frankly, the contingent workforce was doing the best job and doing a lot of our kind of product development and back-end development. And there really wasn't. And when I joined the team, I didn't even realize people had different contractual statuses. Everyone, it was just a team, and everyone was just doing a great job. And it never really occurred to me that people were different. Everyone came to the kind of the launch party. Everyone was doing the work together, so it would have been really surprising to exclude people.
Yeah.
But I know in other situations, when someone I know, our kids are at the same school, and she's kind of in reception in the mailroom in this company. I said, "Oh, what's it like at that company?" And she's like, "I do not work for that company. I work for this service company." And it was almost like it'd been drilled into her that she had to say she didn't work for the company. And I thought it was kind of weird, because you're in the building, you're with the same people, you're sharing the same space, and there's a kind of sharing that atmosphere. And to kind of feel like you can't say you work for the company, it's it's kind of dehumanizing, I feel, in some ways. And so I know some companies are kind of nervous. There was a big legal case with Microsoft in the past where there was a big class action, I think. But I think that, I mean, that's one extreme. There should be, I mean, kind of mechanisms in place that we kind of, you're made to feel like part of the team. You're doing all the work, and maybe you're not in the company for the whole, for 20 years. But I think, look at workforces these days, and with Generation Z and millennials working, people aren't expecting to work in companies for that long. Yeah. And so whether you're contingent or full-time, you may only be there for a year and a half anyway. So I think we need to kind of change our mindset in terms of how we think about the human experience at work.
Absolutely. And I think there is a huge shift and drive coming in terms of benefits and looking at all sorts of things for this sort of external workforce as well. So I'm not only participating in certain conversations, one of them becoming, the declassification of these workers so we can classify them correctly, but also looking at what's coming out of the government or what's coming out of businesses that want to really support them, which is brilliant, right?